We spend our entire lives building a perfect future, believing that hard work and the right choices will protect us. But what happens when, in a single, random moment, that entire future is erased by a cruel twist of fate? Hello, and welcome back to our channel. In today's video, we'll explore the story of Dmitri Tertyshny. How did a quiet young man from the industrial heart of Russia overcome incredible odds to become a star in the National Hockey League, NHL? And what is the story behind the freak accident that took his life at the absolute peak of his happiness, just as he was about to become a father? Furthermore, how did his young widow, in the face of an unthinkable loss, create a legacy of love and compassion that continues to this day? Let's find out. To answer those questions, we must first go back to the beginning of his nearly impossible journey, a journey that began halfway across the world, in a completely different world. To understand the journey that brought Dmitri Tertyshny to the NHL, you have to travel back to a place that was a world away from the bright lights and manicured suburbs of North America. Chelyabinsk, Russia, in the 1980s. This was not the Russia of Moscow's grand boulevards or St. Petersburg's imperial palaces. This was the heart of the industrial Urals, a tough, gritty, often bleak city forged in the fires of Soviet industry. During World War II, it was nicknamed Tankograd, the city of tanks, for its prodigious production of military hardware. In the decades that followed, it remained a vital, if unglamorous hub of metallurgy and manufacturing. It was a city of steel mills and factories, a place that, by the 1990s, had gained a reputation as one of the most polluted cities on Earth. For a boy growing up in Chelyabinsk, life was hard, the winters were long and brutal, and the future was often uncertain. In a city like this, there were few escapes, but there was one that mattered more than all the others: hockey. Chelyabinsk was, and still is, a hockey factory. It is home to one of the most legendary and respected hockey programs in the world, Tractor Chelyabinsk. In the rigid, disciplined, and incredibly demanding world of Soviet hockey, Tractor was renowned for producing players who were tough, fundamentally sound, skilled, and relentlessly hardworking. It was a hockey school that valued intelligence and two-way play over flashy one-dimensional offense. For a talented boy growing up in Chelyabinsk, the path was laid out for you at a very young age. You entered the Tractor system. It was a disciplined, almost military-style environment that would become your entire world, demanding total dedication from its young charges. Dmitri Tertyshny, born in 1976, was a product of this system. He was identified as a promising young player and was enrolled in the Tractor Hockey School as a child. His life became a relentless cycle of school, practice, and games. It was a demanding, high-pressure existence, but it was also a path to a better life, a chance to become a hero in a city that desperately needed them. He came of age during a period of immense change and turmoil in his homeland. The Soviet Union was crumbling around him, and the chaotic, often dangerous wild 90s that followed were a time of both incredible opportunity and terrifying uncertainty. The old state-funded system that had supported programs like Tractor was collapsing. Funding dried up, and economic desperation became the new reality. Paychecks, if they came at all, were often not in rubles, but in goods. Stories were common of players being paid with vodka, sausages, or car tires, whatever the struggling local factories could offer. Beyond the economic chaos, a new danger emerged. The rise of the Russian mafia meant that talented young athletes were often seen as valuable assets, subject to intimidation and pressure to sign contracts that benefited criminal organizations. For a generation of young Russian players like Dmitri, the National Hockey League in North America became more than a sports league. It was a golden ticket to a different universe. But breaking into that universe was a monumental challenge. The NHL scouts flocking to post-Soviet Russia were hunting for specific archetypes: hulking, intimidating defensemen in the mold of Darius Kasparaitis, or dynamic, puck-moving wizards like Vladimir Malakhov. Dmitri Tertyshny was neither. He was lanky, and his game wasn't built on bone-crushing hits or highlight reel goals. Instead, his genius was subtle. He played a quiet, intelligent, and incredibly efficient game based on flawless positioning, smart stick work, and making the simple, correct pass every single time. While scouts were mesmerized by flash and dazzle, They overlooked the quiet brilliance of a player who simply made the game easier for everyone on the ice with him. He was seen as a risk, a lanky kid who might not be physical enough for the smaller North American rinks. So, when the 1995 NHL entry draft came around, no one was surprised when Dmitri's name wasn't called in the early rounds. He was seen as a project, a lanky kid who might not be physical enough to handle the rough-and-tumble NHL style. He waited and waited. Finally, in the 6th round, with the 132nd overall pick, the Philadelphia Flyers took a chance on the unheralded defenseman from Chelyabinsk. A 6th-round pick is a long shot. Most are statistical improbabilities who never play a single NHL game. For Dmitri, being drafted was an honor, but he knew it was just the first step on a long and difficult ladder. He returned to Russia, and for 3 more seasons, patiently honed his skills, working towards a dream that the hockey world had already written off. In the summer of 1998, the Philadelphia Flyers invited him to their rookie training camp. It was seen by most as a formality, a chance for the organization to get a closer look at a distant prospect before he likely returned to Russia for another season. The expectation was that he would, at best, spend a season or 2 in the American Hockey League, the NHL's top minor league, adapting to the smaller North American ice surface and the more physical style of play. No one, not even the Flyers' most optimistic scouts, expected him to be ready for the National Hockey League. But Dmitri Tertyshny had other plans. From the very first day of training camp, he was a revelation. In a camp full of highly touted first-round picks and seasoned veterans trying to hang on to their jobs, the quiet kid from Chelyabinsk stood out. His skating was so fluid and effortless, it looked like he was floating on the ice. His positioning was flawless, his gap control impeccable. He made smart, simple, effective plays with the puck, never panicking under pressure. And he was tough, far tougher than his wiry frame suggested. He battled hard in the corners and in front of the net, refusing to be intimidated by bigger, more established players. The Flyers' coaching staff and management were stunned. They had thought they had drafted a long-term project, a diamond in the rough. What they discovered was a player who was already a polished gem. The general manager of the Flyers at the time was the legendary Bobby Clarke, a Hall of Famer, and one of the toughest, most demanding leaders the sport has ever known. Clarke was not a man who was easily impressed, but he was immediately taken with Tertyshny. He saw a young player with a calm, veteran-like poise that was impossible to teach. The coach, Roger Nielsen, a brilliant and respected hockey mind, felt the same way. He was looking for a defenseman who could be trusted in his own end, a player who wouldn't be a liability. And here was this 21-year-old rookie who barely spoke a word of English, playing with the composure of a 10-year veteran. As training camp progressed, and as Dmitri continued to impress in preseason games against NHL-level competition, a shocking possibility began to emerge. He might just be good enough to make the team right now. It was a fairy tale story. The long-shot 6th-round pick, the kid no one was paying attention to, had come to his first North American camp and had simply outplayed everyone. He had forced his way onto the team through sheer undeniable talent and hard work. When the final roster was announced for the 1998 to 1999 season, Dmitri Tertyshny's name was on it. He had done it. He had made the National Hockey League. His rookie season was a quiet, resounding success. The Philadelphia Flyers of that era were a tough, veteran-laden team. The legacy of the Broad Street Bullies was still very much a part of their identity. The locker room was filled with imposing personalities, superstars like Eric Lindros and John LeClair. It could have been a massively intimidating environment for a quiet young man from a different culture who was still grappling with a new language and a new way of life. But Dmitri fit in seamlessly. He did it not with his words, but with his actions. He worked hard in practice. He listened to the coaches. And in games, he played a simple, mistake-free style of hockey that quickly earned the trust of his teammates and the coaching staff. He wasn't a star, but he was an essential part of the team. He played in 62 games that season, a remarkable achievement for a rookie defenseman, especially one who was not expected to even be on the roster. He was a solid, reliable presence on the blue line, a player who could be counted on to make the smart play night after night. Off the ice, his life was blossoming. He was a young man in a new country, living a dream he had worked his entire life to achieve. He was earning a salary that was an absolute fortune by Russian standards, and he was using it to build a future for his family. That spring, after the season ended, he returned to Russia and married his sweetheart, Polina. They were young, in love, and about to start a family. Polina was pregnant with their first child, a son. They were building a new life together in North America. They found an apartment in the Philadelphia area. Dmitri was diligently learning English, aided by his teammates and the organization. His teammates adored him. They called him Dima. They loved his quiet, shy smile, his gentle sense of humor, and his incredible work ethic. He was a young man whose future seemed bright and limitless. He was newly married, with a child on the way, and a promising NHL career ahead of him. He had every reason to live. He had everything to live for. In the summer of 1999, the off-season for professional hockey players like Dmitri Tertyshny represented a critical period of recovery and rebuilding. After enduring the physical toll of the 1998-99 NHL season with the Philadelphia Flyers, where he had played 62 games as a rookie defenseman, contributing 2 goals and 8 assists while adapting to North American ice, Dmitri focused on healing minor injuries like bruises and strains accumulated from checks and blocked shots. This time also emphasized conditioning to prepare for the upcoming campaign, with many athletes attending specialized training camps to maintain edge strength, speed, and endurance. In July 1999, Dmitri joined one such camp in Kelowna, British Columbia, a picturesque city in the Okanagan Valley, renowned for its vineyards, orchards, and crystal-clear lakes under sunny skies averaging 25 to 30 degrees Celsius, 77 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit. The camp involved morning ice sessions for skating drills, afternoon weight training, and nutritional plans to build muscle mass, all amid the region's scenic beauty that offered a respite from urban pressures. Accompanying Dmitri were fellow young prospects, including Russian compatriots Mikhail Chernov and Andrei Troshchinsky, both aspiring to NHL careers through similar paths of international scouting, and Francis Bélanger, a rugged forward from Quebec known for his enforcer style in junior leagues. The group bonded over shared workouts, pushing each other in sprints and scrimmages, but also relished downtime in Kelowna's laid-back atmosphere. On July 23, 1999, they opted for a break from the regimen, renting a 17-foot aluminum motorboat from a local marina to explore Okanagan Lake, a vast, 135-kilometer-long body of water, with depths up to 232 meters, flanked by rolling hills and beaches. The day promised relaxation, swimming in the lake's refreshing 20 to 22 degrees Celsius waters, picnicking with sandwiches and beers, and cruising at moderate speeds of 20 to 30 knots under clear blue skies. The outing started idyllic, with the young men in high spirits, laughing about recent camp mishaps, sharing stories from their homelands, and diving into the calm lake for relief from the midday heat. Dmitri, at 22 years old and 6 feet 1 inch tall, with a solid 200-pound frame honed by years of Soviet training systems, was cautious around water due to his limited swimming skills, diligently wearing a standard orange life vest secured with straps. As the boat glided smoothly across the glassy surface, he positioned himself on the bow, enjoying the warm breeze and panoramic views of distant mountains. His face relaxed in a moment of pure contentment that captured the essence of youthful promise after a breakthrough NHL season. Tragedy struck abruptly around midday when an unexpected wave, likely the turbulent wake from a larger passing vessel like a wakeboard boat or yacht, common on the busy lake, slammed into their small craft. The impact caused the boat to pitch violently, rocking side to side with enough force to unbalance anyone standing. Dmitri, perched precariously on the narrow bow without handholds, lost his footing in the sudden jolt, stumbling forward and tumbling over the low gunwale into the water, directly ahead of the moving vessel. Mikhail Chernov, at the helm, reacted instinctively by throttling down the engine to idle, but the boat's momentum carried it forward at residual speed. In a horrific split second, Dmitri surfaced briefly in the propeller's path. The spinning 3-blade stainless steel prop, rotating at high RPM even as it slowed, sliced into his neck. severing his jugular vein and carotid artery in a deep, jagged wound that caused immediate, massive hemorrhaging. The idyllic afternoon instantly turned to chaos as blood began to cloud the water around Dmitri's body. His friends, frozen in shock for a moment, scrambled to pull him aboard, using the boat's side ladder, his life vest keeping him afloat, but unable to stem the arterial spray. Francis Belanger, drawing on basic first aid knowledge from hockey injury protocols, cradled Dmitri in his arms on the deck, applying direct pressure with towels and hands to the gaping neck wound, desperately trying to compress the vessels amid gushing blood that soaked the boat floor. Dmitri, conscious briefly, gasped weakly, his face paling from rapid blood loss, estimated at over 2 liters in minutes, leading to hypovolemic shock, organ failure, and unconsciousness. Andrei and Mikhail, voices cracking with panic, radioed for help while speeding back to shore at full throttle. A 10 to 15-minute journey that felt eternal, navigating through other boats as sirens wailed from approaching emergency vessels. Upon reaching the marina dock around 1 p.m., paramedics from Kelowna General Hospital, alerted via 911, took over with advanced life support, intubation for airway management, IV fluids to combat shock, and bandages to control bleeding. Transported by ambulance in critical condition, Dmitri arrived at the ER, where surgeons attempted emergency repairs to the lacerated vessels, but the damage was too extensive. Severed nerves, massive tissue loss, and irreversible blood loss leading to brain hypoxia. He was pronounced dead shortly after, at approximately 2 p.m. on July 23, 1999, from exsanguination due to traumatic neck injury. At 22, his untimely death left a void in the hockey world, cutting short a career poised for growth after a solid rookie year, and devastating his family in Russia and teammates who mourned the freak accident that turned a joyful day into irreversible loss. The news of the accident was met with stunned disbelief. It was a story so bizarre, so tragic, it seemed impossible. How could this happen? How could a life be extinguished in such a random, cruel, and utterly senseless way? The news reached the Flyers organization, and a wave of shock and profound grief washed over the entire team, from the owner's box down to the locker room. Bobby Clarke, the tough, unsentimental general manager, was heartbroken. He had seen so much in his long and storied career, brutal injuries, bitter defeats, the highs and lows of the sport, but nothing like this. He was the one who had to make the most difficult phone call of his life to inform Dmitri's pregnant wife, Polina, who was thousands of miles away in Russia, that her husband, the father of her unborn child, was gone. His teammates were devastated. They remembered the quiet, smiling kid who had so quickly earned their respect with his hard work and his humility. They remembered the excitement of his rookie season, the limitless promise of his future, and now he was just gone. The sheer randomness of it was the hardest thing to comprehend. This wasn't a car crash, or an illness, or an overdose, the kind of tragedies that, while terrible, have a grim familiarity in the world of professional sports. This was something else. This was a 1 in a billion accident, a moment of such cruel and random misfortune that it defied all understanding. In the aftermath of a tragedy like this, there is often a desperate search for meaning, a need to make sense of the senseless. But in the case of Dmitri Tertyshny, there was no deeper meaning to be found. There was no one to blame, no controversy to debate, no lesson to be learned about risky behavior. He was wearing a life vest. He was with friends on a calm day. There was no alcohol involved. There was only the brutal, staggering reality of a life cut short by a moment of terrible, inexplicable misfortune. Dmitri Tertyshny's tragic death left lingering, painful questions. In a world of sports built on an illusion of control, his random passing was a terrifying reminder of life's fragility. It also raised a professional what if. Could his presence have helped the Philadelphia Flyers go further in the season that immediately followed? However, Dmitri's true legacy is found not in those questions, but in how his community responded. In place of the coldness often found in professional sports, the Flyers organization, led by Bobby Clarke and Ed Snyder, took extraordinary action. They not only paid the full salary of his contract to his wife, Polina, but also established a trust fund to secure the future of his unborn son. more important than money, was the emotional support. They embraced his family, helping Polina immigrate, find a home, and becoming her second family in a foreign country. This was not a public relations stunt. It was done quietly and sincerely. His legacy lives on through the team's acts of remembrance and, most powerfully, through his son, Dmitri Jr. Growing up in the embrace of the Flyers family, he followed in his father's footsteps to become a hockey player, fulfilling the dream of a father he never had the chance to meet. The story of Dmitri Tertyshny is a testament that a person's legacy is not defined by their tragic death, but by the love and compassion they leave behind. Dmitri passed away at the age of 22, but the love he left behind for his wife, his teammates, and his fans lives on forever. And perhaps that was the greatest victory of his life. And that's all for today's video. If you liked this video, hit that thumbs up, let us know your thoughts in the comments section, and subscribe so you won't miss out on future uploads. See you next time,